This is Rogers TV.
The opinions expressed in the following programs are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of Rogers nor Rogers TV.
Welcome to another episode of Tobin Tonight. In this episode, we have Steph La Rochelle. Hopefully I pronounced that right. Not great with French. Newfoundlander. Know a little bit of French. Not all French. We're going to talk about her latest album, Wildflower, the songs that go with it, performing it for the first time, pandemic, and just getting a little bit to know Steph, because she does have both music and acting up her sleeve. So let's get right into it, shall we? Music.
The very first question I want to ask you is very tough, very hard hitting. How are you doing today? How are you doing?
How am I doing today?
Yeah.
I am doing great. Happy to be here. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. I just celebrated a 31st birthday. So
amazing. Happy birthday.
Yeah, I had John Stamos on for my 31st birthday. So that's
You're kidding.
No, I feel like that's a big deal. And I feel like people now are gonna be like, really? That's how you're gonna introduce this guest by talking about another one? So dude, if you're a kid from the 90s, you love Full House. If you don't, I'm concerned.
Yeah, Full House is where it's at. That's so cool that you had him on.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty cool. I want to ask you, to start off, because I know we're going to go into the music side, your new song, all of that good stuff. But this is Conversations, people. We're going to get to know everything about, our guests. I want to ask you, growing up, who were some of your favorite musicians that you kind of modeled your music after?
I grew up listening to, so when I was really young, my dad always had music playing in the house. So I grew up listening to a lot of the classic female vocalists, Celine, Barbara, Mariah, Whitney, all those greats. But he also always had stuff like Supertramp, Elton John, classic rock, the Eagles, that kind of stuff playing. So I had a lot of influence early on. And I was also obsessed with movie musicals. So I would watch Annie or The Wizard of Oz, that kind of thing. I think I wore out the Annie VHS because I watched it so many times. So all kinds of stuff, yeah.
Were you big on, I know kind of everyone's influences go all over the place, but were you kind of big on Shania, Celine Dion, or was it kind of I guess Britney, Christina, or were they not even in your picture?
Actually, yeah. There was a ton of Celine and those great artists, but I think the first physical piece of music that I had from an artist was Britney Spears on a cassette.
Okay.
I had Britney Spears and Backstreet Boys and little cassettes. So yeah, they were definitely in the mix.
That's fair. I feel there's going to be people out there now that's a younger generation, what the hell's a cassette?
I didn't even know what that is.
Yeah. What do you mean a CD? Didn't you just put it on your iTunes, man? I'd be no.
That's a funny thing too. I printed physical CDs for this release just because it's a nice keepsake, something I've always wanted to have. But I've been saying to people I don't think anyone has a CD player anymore. Cars, it's kind of gone extinct. Laptops don't have it. Cars don't have it.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because artists do come out with CDs still. I know they a lot of people will be oh, well, here's the Dua Lipa's new song, go download it on iTunes, and she's probably thrilled. But at the same point, it's okay, but why does she have a vinyl out? If you're going to make fun of CDs and cassettes, vinyls are dating it way more. Yeah. But I guess there's still
making a comeback.
Yeah, I feel there's people out there that still have vinyl CD or vinyl collections, and they like that, and they're well, now I'm updating it with modern music. But then there's also the kind of the hipsters out there. It's I don't even own anything about vinyl, but it's trending now, so I'm just gonna buy a vinyl. I'm are you gonna listen to it? No, I'm just gonna have it collected on a shelf. I'm all right, I respect that, but at the same point, I'm it's still why?
Yeah.
Someone buying a Funko Pop, and I get that you just want to put it on display, but there are certain Funko Pops where I'm it's okay to take them out and just you know, if you're not going to ever sell them, like I've got a Conan O'Brien and Stephen Colbert Funko Pop, but I don't got them wrapped up. I still have them on display, you know, just in case. It's not like I'm selling them. And if I ever meet Conan, I'll just be like, Conan, sign it, and boom, okay. You know, but people are like so upset with that. They'll just be like, no, keep it in packaging. So I think it's cool to have a keepsake. Like, I don't have anything for a podcast. I'm not going to make a podcast CD or a podcast.
Yeah.
Like, this is my repertoire is just on YouTube. So if a YouTube goes down one day, it's like, do you remember who Tobin was? No, I'll be like, oh,
You gotta make t-shirts.
Yeah, t-shirt. I do have a sweater, but my
Your
sweater
sweater's
design, like it was pretty shitty because like I went and cheaped out and got like a Tobin Tonight logo, and then I put it in the wash. 4 washes
Oh, it
later,
doesn't come
it's
off.
like it shows wrinkles on my face. I'm just like, all right, that can be an older Tobin Tonight shirt.
It's vintage. We'll call
Yeah,
it vintage.
it's vintage. I want to ask you again, like in terms of the music side, like were you really musical growing up? Like, was there certain instruments that you kind of drew yourself to? Like for me, I wanted to be like, I guess a piano player or into guitar because I watched like John Mayer and Ed Sheeran, and then I was just like, all right, you also need to be able to sing, Bryan. And I was like, maybe comedy is more up my realm.
Yeah, I didn't play. I started playing guitar when I think I got my first guitar around 11. But when I was a kid, I wanted a violin.
Okay.
And so my grandma, I don't know the whole story because I was pretty young. There's a picture of me at like 4 or 5, and she had made me a violin out of cardboard.
Okay.
So she cut it out and drew some strings on it, and I would play that just like cardboard violin around the house. But then at school, in elementary school, there was a guitar, I think it was during lunchtime, there was a teacher that was offering guitar lessons for students, but you had to bring a guitar with you. And my dad had an old guitar and I wanted to take it to school, but he didn't want me to do that just in case, you know. So he ended up surprising me with a guitar, and that's when I started playing around 11 or 12, I'd say.
Okay. And do you remember like the very first song you ever learned on a guitar? Because like, listen, when I was getting into piano, and I know it sounds corny, but like I thought like 1,000 Miles by Vanessa Carlton or like a Michelle Branch song. And then I'm like, okay, I got to be a little bit more manly here. Let's think of something. And I was just like, oh, it's like, how about Chris Brown's like Forever? Because you look on like YouTube and you'd see people be like, I know this is a pop song, but guess what? You can play it on piano. I was like, no way. And I was like, okay, let's try it. And I got to maybe like the chorus. And then I was like, all right, this sucks. I'm like, I can't do this. Can you explain a little bit of your educational background? Like, did you go to like a musical school? Did you go to Carleton or University of Ottawa? If you say U of Ottawa, this closes. No, I'm like,
I did not. No, I did not. No, so after high school, I was supposed to go to Sheridan College in Oakville for their theater prep program. So it's like a 1-year sort of intro program to all aspects of theater and that kind of thing. I had never applied. I had thought about applying for they have a proper musical theater program, but I never auditioned for it. And so that was sort of my plan. I went to Oakville and secured an apartment and was ready to do that. And then I auditioned for this reality show on CBC. It was called Over the Rainbow. So it was a search for Dorothy for Andrew Lloyd Webber's new production of The Wizard of Oz that was going to play in Toronto. Okay. So that sort of went from, I guess, August to November. So I couldn't start school, and then I never ended up going. So that show kind of opened up doors, and then I ended up doing some private classes and training in Toronto, but I never did a proper post-secondary.
I want to ask you, because it's kind of getting into your acting side here. Like, was that also like a kind of a niche or a bug when you were younger? Like, I know you mentioned about the music side and your dad playing music, but like, was your mom the one that impacted your acting side where it's like, all right, dad has you in the shed and he's listening to like Shania and, you know, Mariah, and then your mom's like, get out of here. It's like, let's watch some Annie and let's watch some of these musicals. And you're like, stop tearing me apart, guys.
That's funny. Yeah, no, I did watch a lot of movie musicals. My sister and I did community theater together when we were kids. And Annie was the first show that we did, actually. She played Annie, and we did that together. So yeah, and I was always in the school play and that kind of thing, and just had the bug, really. So Over the Rainbow sort of really opened up those doors and allowed me to get an agent and start sort of working professionally a little bit. And it's sort of mind-blowing to me how it all sort of fell into place, but here we are.
Okay. No, I think it's interesting because, like, again, if you have like a career path and you want to go for it, but like, were there moments that you kind of thought, like, it sounds like you had like early success going on. Now I say that and you're probably like, shut the fuck up. It wasn't that way at all. But like, were there moments where you kind of had to either pick a lane to yourself? Did you ever think like, okay, I either got to do music or I could do acting? Or was it kind of like, well, I can do both with a musical?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
That's the thing. And that's why I recently was a part of Dear Evan Hansen, a musical, and that musical specifically, because I don't necessarily have any sort of classical training vocally. So those classical musicals are maybe not the best fit for me, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And I'm not a dancer. So that's another thing. So it sort of narrows it down. So Dear Evan Hansen is very much it's very filmic. It's a very sort of intimate musical. It's almost like a play or a movie on stage with pop songs.
Okay.
So that was a really, really great fit for me. And like you said, it's so cool to be able to do both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's because like when I think of, now I can't say that I've seen all of them or like, but if someone says to me as a Newfoundlander, a musical that's like really big, I think Come From Away. Right.
Yeah.
Like, and then I think like, okay, I've never really seen it like in Broadway sense. There might be ones in like Toronto and whatnot, but like, I'm just like, I wonder how much dancing is involved in that. Like, because I feel like
I've seen that one.
yeah, like if you're gonna cast Newfoundlanders, I'm just like, and you don't ask them to like do a jig or dance, I'm just like, is that more insulting to the Newfoundlander, or is it more insulting that you ask them? And I really want to ask a Newfoundlander at some point where it's just like, are you insulted when they ask you to dance, or do you? And it's like, nah, love to dance, and I'd be like, okay, good.
Yeah.
But like, I feel like watching clips of that, I don't know if there's really that much dancing to it. So I feel like Come From Away has a little bit more of the message of 9/11, which I think like that sounds like something that could be right up your alley. Like, you know.
Yeah, no, I've seen that one. It's definitely, I feel like musical theater as a whole is sort of evolving away from the sort of classical, like dancey, or I shouldn't say that, but definitely I think a lot of new shows have different music. It's driving towards the pop sound, I think.
Okay.
Which is sort of up my alley.
When you were young, do you remember like the first kind of, I know you mentioned Annie, and I know like you mentioned the, like obviously your latest projects, but do you ever look back at like your first ever role and you're like, man, I've grown? Or do you be like, man, I haven't changed a bit?
Well, I would say my first professional sort of like proper speaking role on a TV series was Heartland on CBC.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Which was super, super fun. Looking back at it now, I think I was young and naive, and I was so nervous. It was just sort of my first thing, and I flew to Calgary, and it was a big deal. So I mean, I hope I've grown, right?
Yeah. just be like, no, I still F up all my lines. I still do this. People like, what? Like, how old? And you're just like, I'm getting there eventually. Like, do you remember, like, I know we kind of talked about the acting side. Let's get back into your musical side. Let's talk a little bit about your new song, your new album. Like, what can people expect when this song comes out, essentially?
Yeah, so this album, it's been a couple years in the making. Just some of the songs I've sort of had in my back pocket for a while. And the universe had its plans, and timing was never right to record or release them. So I'm very excited that the world gets to hear them soon. But basically, the album sort of chronologically follows someone coming out of a bad relationship, getting into a new one, that kind of thing. Classic breakup songs, love songs, you know. But the title track, Wildflower, sort of inspires self-reflection. And I think sort of at its core, it's about finding yourself through love and life. And it's been a really fun process. Yeah.
Okay, so like I'm interested in the timing aspect, because you mentioned about a couple of years of like, you know, picking the release time. Now, essentially, I know the pandemic probably was like a factor where it's like, okay, I'm not going to release something in a pandemic when, people, because there's I guess it's bittersweet because some people are like, yes, I'm dying to hear new music because I'm locked in. And yeah, I'll definitely go down and listen to your music because there's nothing else to do. But then there's another part of people that's like, are you fucking kidding me? You're going to release music during a pandemic? Like, what's wrong with you? Like, we're all sad and depressed and we don't have money.
Well,
Oh,
the
it's
other
all
thing
about
is,
me.
I guess
Yeah.
during that time you couldn't perform in public, right?
True. Yeah. So it's
Um,
kind of hard to like be like, here's my new song. It's like, I'd love to hear you do it. It's like, well, I can't, Steven. Like,
yeah,
but
Steven.
yeah, Steven, if you're out there, it's like some guys are like listening to this now, like, what did I do? I did nothing wrong. But like, tell me a little bit of like other factors that contribute to that. Cause I mean, I know you mentioned about the highs and lows of relationships is all kind of intertwined in this album, but like, was it based on personal experiences? Was it based on like, again, in a culture that we live in society with your friends, you're kind of like, you know what? I haven't gone through that, but I've seen this person go through it. I'm going to write a song about it. So
Yeah, some of the
okay.
songs are a couple years old, and I'd say that I sort of draw inspiration from all kinds of things, whether it be personal or, like you said, somebody in a friend circle, or even watching movies and that kind of thing, and sort of drawing off that stuff. So yeah, it's sort of a compilation of things, I'd say. Yeah.
Okay, that's fair. I mean, I always think of when I do like when I see a TV show or watch a movie and I'm just kind of like envisioning like, oh, it's like it probably doesn't happen in real life. And then sometimes it does. And then sometimes it's like, I don't know, like there are times in movies that you kind of have to romanticize a little bit about them where my go-to example is almost like when you watch Boy Meets World or Friends and like the classic one of like, the voice message from Ross and Rachel where it's almost like, did she get off the plane? Like, tell me she got off the plane. And like, after watching it like 7 times, because that's probably how many times I've seen Friends, I'm like, she got off the plane, relaxed. But it's still that like moment, I don't know why, where you think the TV is just going to be like, guess what? She didn't get off the plane. I'm just like, oh man. It's like you phone up a friend, like, yeah, on my TV, she didn't get off the plane. Like, did she get off the plane on your end of the TV? Oh, she did? Okay, well, on my side, she didn't. And Ross is like breaking down crying. I want to ask is like to kind of have a bit of a fun aspect of this. Do you want to play a game of like rapid fire questions?
Ooh, okay.
Okay, so this is where I kind of lose control of my podcast. So like, if something happens here that you're like, yeah, I'm not answering that, feel free to toss to me. I don't have problem there. Yeah, there you go. I don't mind. So I'm just gonna get this generated here. Oh, okay. I like this one. I mean, I'll kind of swap them out if it's like a little bit off, but this one is, do you remember your first embarrassing moment on stage?
Ooh, first embarrassing moment. It probably wasn't my. Oh.
I'll think of one. I don't want to go too embarrassing.
Never been. First embarrassing. I can think of an embarrassing moment on stage. Well, I don't want to call anybody out. Whatever. I was doing a production of a musical, and I guess maybe I didn't say my cue line loud enough, so the band didn't come in.
Oh. Okay.
I kind of just stood there waiting for a little bit. And then I started singing the song and they ended up coming in. So it was all fine. But for a moment, I felt very just sort of naked and like, what do I do?
That's fair. Okay. So the next one they have is what's a dream job that you would like to have?
A dream job. I'm gonna circle back to the musical thing again. And
okay.
I would love to be in Waitress. I don't know if you're familiar with it. Sarah Bareilles wrote the music. It's incredible. So that's on my list for sure. Okay.
All right. So what is a recent dream or nightmare that you have recently experienced?
Oh, I have a lot of crazy dreams. I just had a sort of spooky dream the other night that my aunt and I went to this Airbnb that was in the middle of nowhere. And then we ended up going into town to see a concert or something happened in town. And then we realized that we had no way of getting back to the Airbnb.
Okay.
We were stranded, that kind of thing. That was a couple nights ago. Very weird.
Yeah, that's fair. I always wonder like what kind of causes those dreams. Cause I mean,
what do they mean?
I've had dreams where someone's like, yeah, if you dream about a person, that means they're thinking of you. I'm just like, okay. It's
Aren't
like,
I thinking of
yeah,
them?
yeah, like that's how it goes. Like, listen, that maybe works when you're like 5 or 6 and you're like, yeah, I dreamt about this girl in school. And they'd be like, okay, that probably means you're thinking. I'm like, oh, that's sweet. But it's like, if you dream about Rihanna or Britney Spears, I highly doubt that they're like some guy in Newfoundland came in my dreams or something. And you're just like,
Yeah.
why? It's like, I don't know. It's like, I just had this weird dream that he was there.
Don't they say something about dreams where you can only see faces of people not people you know, but faces you've seen before? Like you can't
Oh,
create a face.
you know what? I feel like that's like I feel that sometimes that's like bullshit because there's times where it's like I see someone's and it's people are gonna call me crazy, but there are times that I'll have a dream like 3 years ago, and I'd be like I'll hear a voice, kind of see a blurred face, and then 3 years later, if I'm at like Carlton for like the first time, I don't know anyone here, but I hear like, "Hey, did you get that assignment done?" I'm like, "Where did I hear that before?"
It's like a
And then
deja vu.
yeah, and then
Yeah.
I'm just still like, I always want to go up to them and be like, "You left it at home," and then they're like, "How do you know?" I'd be like, "Don't ask. 3 years ago," and they'd be like, "You're weird. Get away from me." I'm like, "Shut up. I'm not weird."
Special powers.
Yeah, it's like, but they're useless. Like, it's not like I'm protecting the world. I'm just helping Jack with a goddamn assignment that he just forgot at home. It's like, Brian, we really need help in this category over here. I'm just like, well, I helped Jack get his paper done. Does that count for anything? Like, all right. The other next random one here is like, oh, what's your favorite sour candy?
Ooh, sour candy. I'd say fuzzy peaches.
Fuzzy peaches. Okay, I'm more of a.
Or
I like.
no. Can I take that back?
Go
What
for
did you
it.
say? Sorry.
I was gonna say sour keys. Like I literally have
Oh yeah,
a
yeah.
bowl of sour keys on the side here.
Amazing. I'm gonna take that back. Say sour watermelon.
So okay, that's yeah. I can dig a sour watermelon. Like anything sour to me is good. If someone came up with something sweet, it's just I don't know. I just don't like sweet stuff. It has to be somewhat of a sour taste. And people are like maybe because you're a sour person. I'm like okay, that's hurtful. Um, so the other random one we have here is okay. If you could perform anywhere in the world, where would it be, and who would you have on your list of like artists that you'd want to perform with?
Ooh, anywhere in the world.
It's like my
Well,
backyard because I'm lazy.
let's go huge. Wembley Stadium.
Oh, okay.
Who would I have there? I mentioned Sarah Bareilles from Waitress she's probably one of my biggest inspirations. I really admire her as a person. From what I can tell, I don't know her, but
yeah.
and I admire her career, and I think she's an incredible vocalist and probably one of the best songwriters of our time. So she's definitely on the list. You know who else I'd really love to collaborate with is Jim Cuddy, Blue Rodeo.
Okay. Yeah.
I love his voice and sort of sing along and harmonize to their stuff all the time. So that'd be really cool.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that's not like a very.
That's not too far-fetched. That could happen.
No, exactly. I feel like you can just reach out to Jim Cuddy and be like, "Hey, I'm an Ottawa artist. I've got a few songs out here." It's like, I'm sure he'd probably be like, "Send them to me." And then he'd either be like, "You know what? Next time we're in Ottawa, sure, you can open for me." Like, I don't feel like that's hard. I don't feel like that's a long. Yeah. What are you doing?
I've met him before. I don't think he'll remember, but I should reach out. You're right.
Do it. And then just know if it happens, just send me a message. Be like, Tobin, took your advice. I'm like, it wasn't really advice. It was a random question, but you took the random question advice and sure, it worked out. You gotta go big or go home,
You're right.
Or in this case, go Canadian or go home. The last random one I want to ask you is, this one's not like overly complex, I guess, but it says like, hold on, let me see. Okay, there it is. Do you remember like a favorite birthday gift that you received, and why was it your favorite?
Ooh, favorite birthday gift. I'm not big on birthdays.
All right, don't throw Steph in your birthday.
This is the one where I'm gonna have to say I don't even know. Birthday gift. Oh man. You stumped me a little bit.
That's fair. Like if you want, I can give you time, and I'll tell you mine.
Yeah, you tell me mine. You tell
Okay.
me
Yeah,
mine.
you do.
Tell me yours.
Okay, sure, fine. I'll tell you what you did. No, my I think favorite one that I've got for my birthday is like most years I get like an NHL game when I was younger, or like a wrestling game. But I think for my birthday one year they gave me like a radio thing that you can kind of you just pick up a random station on your CD or on the radio that's like just pure static. You'd plug in this radio thing. Yeah, you could play CDs off it too, but you can put your voice on and this random static and you'd hear yourself. And I found like I was like, oh, this is cool. I'm actually on the radio. I'm not on the radio. It's just on my own radio. But then I would go downstairs, and this is where like my trust issues began. Was I'd go downstairs and I'd be like, "Did you guys hear me on the radio?" I'd be like, "Yeah, you sound so good." And then I was just like, "Oh, they heard me." And then like later, I'm like, "No, they didn't. It's only on my radio they can hear me. Why would they lie to me like that?" They're probably just
What
like,
a cute
"Brian's
gift though. That inspired your
It's like,
whole career.
Brian's busy upstairs. Leave him be. We don't want him downstairs." I'd be like, thank you guys, you're so nice. But yeah, do you have one that comes in to mind?
I'm thinking now. You know Harriet the Spy? Do you know that movie?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So I want to say it was a birthday gift. I'm not entirely sure, but for this purpose, we'll say that it was.
Okay, yeah, sure.
I got this little like. I wanted to be a spy like her. So I took my dad's tool belt and I filled it with like a notepad and a pen and a magnifying glass or something. And I would sort of go around the house and like spy on people and write things down. But I got this kit that had this magic marker.
Okay.
So you could write down, you could write stuff, but it wasn't visible unless
yeah. No, I know those. Yeah.
Or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was really cool.
You can just imagine like you were like the worst spy in the world, where it's just like, I see you, and
it's in my parents' basement. There's a notebook, and it's literally me saying, I walked into the living room and my dad was watching TV.
Yeah.
Just so mundane.
It's just like these notes don't help us, Steph. These notes are not very helpful. No, but imagine like it's like invisible ink, and then you try to go back after you did 3 days of research, and then you're just like, I don't have a goddamn clue what I wrote. It's like invisible. It's just like you were the worst spy ever, right? But no, like when you mention that, the show that comes to mind for me is just like Kim Possible. I loved Kim Possible when I was growing up. But like,
I used to watch that every day after school.
To this day, I kind of want on my phone, I want that ringtone to be like do do do. But I'm just like, man, there's gonna be people after this like, can you believe this guy? He's got Kim Possible. I'm just like, shut up, you knew it. Like, don't make fun of me. You knew it. So what does that say about you?
That's going to do it for this episode of Tobin Tonight. Our thanks to Steph La Rochelle for coming on to the show. Remember, you can find past, present, and future episodes on TobinTonight.com, Spotify, and iTunes. Follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and leave a comment or two. For Tobin and myself, this is Jacob saying thank you for listening and good night.